All right, I'm going to try to start up again. It looks like it's a little bit more responsive than it's been. What I'm going to show you now, don't do this, but I want to show you something. I wish I had done this before I had you put in that dependency line, but it's okay. All right. Now, again, you don't have to do this. I'm going to remove it right away, but I want to show you, if you look on the screen, if I go to the bottom of my imports and I type in import, and I type in, notice what we have. That's what you got with that retrofit. So anything that's available under retrofit, we're going to need that for what we're going to do, is now available to you. If we had done this before we did that dependency line, if you typed in RAT, it wouldn't have found anything. All right. So by going into Gradle as we did and adding that dependency, all right, again, what it means is now we're going to be able to use the stuff that's in that library of code. I mean, I'm sorry, I just find this amazing. Okay, there it just left. But 30 seconds ago, I hit the backspace key 6 times. Nothing happened for 30 seconds. It's like this machine is now possessed. All right. All right. I mean, I've got my stuff up here. I've done the first 22 steps of this program, and we're up to the middle of step 11, so we're about half done. We're not going to finish it today. All right. I didn't know if we would or not, but I'm hoping. I talked to Mike Stacey today. He's having me move a bunch of stuff from my C drive over to the E drive. All right. And he said, well, we can give you another computer. And I said, what's the difference? He said, it's got 25 gigs more hard drive. It's 150. This is only 125 gig hard drive. All right. He said, that one would give you 150. I said, what else is it going to buy me? He said, nothing. And I don't want to go through all the trouble of having to move everything and set it all up on another machine. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to keep this one. So I'm going to live with it. He's recommended a few software products to come in and try to clean my machine up. That's what I'm going to do tonight. All right. I'm hoping that that'll fix it up, but we'll see as we get going. All right. Now, what we could do right now is we could put in all the code. We could put in all the code right now to make the system go, and just like we looked at before, we could make it come in here now and wherever we were before. All right, we could make it come in and grab all that JSON stuff. Okay, we could do that. It'd be a lot of work. It's going to take at least a class period to do that stuff. All right, but what we're going to do to try to make it easier for that, is for now, we're going to write our own JSON. Did you hear me? So it's going to be test JSON. And ideally, when we get done, we'll just use like a simple print line, and we'll go and we'll look in the console, all right, and we'll see whether or not our stuff is working. Because ideally it will. All right. All right, so the first thing I'd like you all to do, please, is to go out to a website that's called myjson.com. myjson.com. You hit enter, it should look like this. No, not like that. It's because there we go. It'll come. All right. What you can do in here, as you'd guess, is type in your own JSON. Okay? And that's what we're going to do. All right? This stuff is going to be test data that we're going to put in. Okay? So I'm going to start putting it in. So this is just dummy data. Everything that we put in, trying to blow up the size of the screen here. So everything that we plan on putting in, oh my gosh, come on, give me a darn cursor, is going to go inside of here. All right. Now, for some reason, again, notice I don't know why, but I don't have a frigging cursor. All right. So I'm going to have you, so you can get the stuff done, and then I'll have to catch up to you. That's fine. But I'll tell you what you can key in. All right. The numbers that you put in here are not important. We're just going to simulate 3 days worth of high and low temperatures. Does that make sense? All right, we're not going to put anything else in but the temperatures. So I want you to put in a bracket, not a curly brace, but a bracket. All right, so I want you to put in a bracket, then a curly brace. So hit enter, then a curly brace, then hit enter again, type in double quotes, high, okay, in double quotes, and then a colon, and then a space, and then in double quotes, just put a number in there. I don't care. 73. That's fine. All right, like that. Then put in a comma, and on the next line, put in low, double colon, space, and put in a number, 47. Something like that. The numbers, again, are totally irrelevant. We're just making up some highs and lows. Does that make sense? All right. Okay. Again, I want to type it in. I will type it in as soon as it gives me a cursor to type it in there. All right. Then what you'll do after you've done that, then, if you know, just so you see this, is if you go down here, you can click the save button. So let's see. There's my cursor. Good. Okay. So bracket. Yeah, let me make it a little bigger. Curly brace. Everything I just showed you. So high, colon, space. Again, I'll just use the same numbers. 73, comma, and then low. Doesn't have to be lined up. That doesn't matter a bit. 47. All right. Curly brace. Hit enter again. Bracket. All that makes sense? So I put that in, and then I'm going to hit save. And notice what it does here. Yours probably did it a lot faster than mine. All right. It's prettying it up, for lack of better words. Can you see that? How it prettied it up? It saved it for me, and it prettied it up a little bit. Now, I could have done that same stuff myself, tabbed it over, etc., but I don't have to. What we have right now is our first day's worth of data. Does that make sense? We're not going to do 10 days because it would be stupid to do that. This is just dummy data. But we'll do 3 days. How's that? So to do that, if you look on the screen, after you've got this, come in here. All right, so come in here. It says it was saved. That'll become important later. All right, but I want to be able to come in here. Come on. Shouldn't have to go back to here. Got no cursor. Look at this. No, it's supposed to let. It did yesterday. It could be, but if I don't zoom it in, it'll be very hard for you to see. You know what? I'm just going to create a new one. Get that, please. All right. You should be able to. Yeah. All right. I'll tell you what. Look on the screen if you want, okay? Even if you have to start over, then you have to, I mean, is that a lot to type? All right. What I want you to do is simulate 3 days worth. So in other words, after you put that in, at the end of your curly brace here, you'll put in a comma. Then you can copy the whole thing in again, all this stuff. So you'll have another high. You can put in a different number because this is simulating 3 days. Does that make sense? So I'll put it up here in case I confused you. And I'll put the whole thing up here, all 3 days, but I'll write smaller so that it all fits. something like that. Don't like my numbers? Use your own numbers. It really doesn't matter. Probably it would make more sense that your high was a bigger number and your low. But if you want to pretend it's winter someplace cold, and put lower numbers in there. Really and truly doesn't matter in the end. All right? We're looking for the format in which we put this stuff. So I have my 3 days in there. It appears as though they saved correctly. Again, you say, well, that's not the numbers. Well, they're pretty much the same numbers. Maybe they are the same. I don't know. Did the best I could to try to come up with the same numbers. All right? So the thing to realize, it says your JSON was saved. Everybody see this? All right? Well, I just wanted to show you this. You don't have to do it. But I'm going to grab that URL that it showed me there, and I'm going to paste that in. Don't know why I did it like that, but it did. Okay. Try that again. Try that URL. No, it's back to my original one. Good golly. See, this is what I'm going through. This is what I went through with the class this morning. I would try to show them something, and sometimes it would work, and sometimes the thing would just sit there and spin like that. All right? So I copy that. I'm going to try this again. See if I paste that in. All right, and I hit enter. It's thinking about it. All right, see what it is? It's not exactly the same, but it's similar to where I showed you before, where we grabbed that JSON out and just threw it into an editor. All right, there is a little bit of structure to this. All right, now it showed it at the beginning what it looked like. It's got it. You can put it in JSON and rotate, etc. But it's got this stuff in there. It's started to build this for us. All right. Now, again, if you say mine doesn't look exactly like that, then don't worry about it. All right. All right. So I'm going to come back in here. So I've made some dummy data. All right. I copied it all in, copied it 3 times. It gave me that URL, etc. Now, just so you know, hopefully nobody changed that, but if you look here, that URL, okay, will end up being important. Not right now, but a little bit later. Okay? So don't worry about what it says, what it is. Don't worry about it right now. All right? But it will be important. The thing to realize, if you look right here, in this URL, okay, where it says bins/tggm, that's basically, that's the path to where it's going to. The stuff before that, the https:// //api.myjson.com/, all right? That basically is the heart. So if you don't know what I mean, you're going to see it. But we're going to have to put both of those in. The part that comes before the bins/tggrn, and yours will be different. But the thing that comes before that, that's called the base URL. And what we're going to tell the system is to go out to that base URL and get bin/tggrn in my case. That's what we're going to have to tell the code to do. All right? You can already see, you may or may not agree with this, but this is a fairly simplistic example. You see how much work this involves. All right? That's why, like I said, I can't expect, even if I give you a lot of lab time, that you're going to be able to go out and do something that is just going to be astronomical. All right. What I don't want is I don't want 8 people in here to make another BMI calculator, or 8 people in here to make another guessing game or a rock, paper, scissors. All right? I think we've gotten further than that. At least that's my hope. All right. So the next thing that we're going to do then is we're going to come back in here, and I'm going to bring up my project view, or try to bring up my project view. Oh boy, it's... There's my project view. There we go. Stop. There. All right. For now, I'm not going to worry about the Gradle stuff. We will come back because there's one more Gradle thing we'll have to add. Probably we won't get there till tomorrow. All right? But what I want to do is I want to go back into here, into my app, and I want to go under Java, and I want to go under right here. Okay? What we're going to do now is we're going to add another Kotlin file. Do you hear me? We're going to add another Kotlin file. All right? And the Kotlin file will hold 2 different things. This is one place where Kotlin is different than Java. In Java, your interfaces have to be in their own file. What we're going to do is in our KT file, we're going to have both an interface and we're going to put a class in there. All right, they'll both be in the same file. We're going to do that right now. So I'd like you to, hopefully you've gotten to right here. You don't want the one that says Android test. You don't want the one that says test. You want the top one that says, that's got the name of your, basically the name of your path, so to speak, to your file. All right? And I want us to right mouse click on here and choose new and choose Kotlin File / class. That shouldn't be above anybody in here. Right mouse click on that folder, choose new, and choose Kotlin File class. All right, and it asks, what do you want to do? Well, this is going to be our weather helper, so to speak. It's going to allow us to do some of the stuff we want to do. So I just called mine weather help. You don't have to make it a class. You can just make it a file. In fact, don't make it a class. Make it a file. All right. So with weather help, make sure it's a new Kotlin file because we're going to write Kotlin in it. All right. We don't want it to be a Java. We want it to be a Kotlin. All right. Make sure it's set to file and just click OK. Once you do that, eventually yours will probably come up faster. There it is. It's got my package name on it and just a comment saying the day it was created. That's all that should be in there. And just so you know, we made it to step 12. Now we're in the middle of step 13, so that's good. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to type in, we're going to add our interface. As we add this stuff, a lot of your screen's going to go red. Did you hear what I said? A lot of your screen's going to go red because we're going to add something and it'll be like, I can't find that because we'll create that next. Then we'll add something else and your screen will go red. And then we'll have to add something else. So if your screen goes red, you know, the stuff in there, don't worry about it. All right? It should all clear up fairly quickly. Okay, so we're going to put an interface in here. All right, you'll notice it's blue, it's a keyword, and once we put in an interface, okay, we have to give it a name. Well, this is going to be our own weather API, so let's call it, here's a surprise, weather API. Okay, again, if you don't like that, you can call it something else, but when I refer to it as weather API in code, then you'll have to change yours as well. All right. Now you'll notice there's a little light bulb there. The bulb says there's nothing in there. So if I did click the clean up code now, it would get rid of it because it says I've got something in there right now that's not doing anything. So we're going to make it do something. All right. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to call something. Now I'm going to put in a line of code, and in just a minute I'm going to have to put another line above that. All right. So what is this doing? I'm asking you, what is this doing? What is that right there doing? It's not saying, are we having fun? What is that? It's a function. We're going to put a function in here. Now, you may or may not remember, but when we created functions, when we created an interface in Java, we had our choice. If it was abstract, when we worked with abstract stuff, we ended up putting in functions with no body. Remember that? That's kind of what we're going to do right now. All right. So we're going to put a function in here that's going to be called getForecast. All right. And that getForecast will not require us to put in anything, but it will return call. All right. And boy, that should have been showing me something, and it's not, which I don't like. There. Well, see how it says call right there? Everybody see the screen? Please look at the screen, everybody. You want to make sure that when we do this, we're always choosing the retrofit one. All right? And what that should start doing once we do that is, notice what it imported. Everybody see on the screen in blue? If you choose a different one, it's going to be trying to use a call statement from something else that's not in this retrofit that we just added. If you go, mine didn't come up and show, then you might have to manually type it in. Import retrofit to dot call. All right. So I'm going to put in here list, and I'm going to put inside of that forecast. And you'll notice what's red. It doesn't have any idea what a forecast is. It says I'm going to be returning a list of forecasts. We haven't created that yet. That's why it's red. All right? We're going to create that in just a minute. But before we do that, we have to tell the system where to go to get the information that it needs. Did you hear what I said? We have to tell it where to go. Well, as of right now, hopefully I can get mine to work. As of right now, where we have to go, on mine at least, is I have to go to bins/tggrn. Yours probably has got something different after bins. That's at least my guess. I'd be surprised if yours had the same thing that mine does. You said it does, then it does. All right? But that's what I'm going to need to put in there in just a second. That's why I grabbed that. All right, so going back to my code. All right, I have to tell it where to get that information from. So I put in there @get. Then I'm putting in exactly what I just showed you. Again, yours is probably going to be different. To be honest with you, if you used mine instead of yours, it should still work because that's just going to tell it to go out on the internet and find something. Does that make sense to you? But now it's, if you put in exactly what I have, if I want you to put in what you had at the end after your bins, but if you don't do that, if you put tggrn, it's going to look for where my thing is. But it should be public domain. So you can do that if you really want to. All right? But you'll be grabbing my information as opposed to your information. Now notice what that did not do. That did not get rid of our error. All right? And we will have to go in and get rid of our error right now. That's what we're going to do. So underneath this, we're going to create a class that, for lack of better words, it's a bogus class because it's going to hold our test data. All right? So I'm going to say here, class forecast. All right? See what happened as soon as I typed in class forecast? Well, it went away. The red. See how that's gone now? I could just stop right here, but I don't want to. I have to tell it what the forecast class is going to hold. You already know this. Val high, which is a string. I don't think it matters if I put a space before that colon or not. And val low, which is a string. That right there, what you see right on your screen, right there, that is, and I'm coming right back to it, that's this. Does that make sense to you? We're telling it basically that's the data that we're going to use, and it's our test data. Eventually, we want it to go out to that Yahoo weather thing and grab that information for us. All right? And so we're going to have to make a lot of changes to this. We will end up changing what goes in here. That should make sense to you. All right? We will change it. Not today, but we will change it tomorrow. All right? So now I've got this class in here that basically is a bogus class. It's not doing anything other than it's going to hold our high and our low. We don't need any curlies. We don't need anything. All right? But underneath this, we're going to create another class. And if you don't like this, when we get to tomorrow, we're going to create like about 6 classes in a row. Boom, 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 boom. And what those are going to do is they're going to go down that path in that JSON that we looked at. So we're going to go down from query to something else, to something else, to something else, and eventually we'll get to forecast. All right? And once we get to forecast, then we're going to be able to grab all that forecast information. All right? Okay. So we're coming in here, and like I said, we're going to create another class. And again, the names that we call these things, they should be pretty much indicative of what we want to do with them. So this is going to be a weather retriever. So I'm going to call it class weather retriever. And this one will have code in it. So I need the curly brace there. All right. It doesn't require any parameters, so I don't even need parentheses there. I'm not going to click on the light bulb because all it's going to say is you got an empty class there that isn't doing anything. So we're going to start putting some stuff into it right now. All right. And it's going to be quite a bit, but I'm going to put a little bit in, then talk about what we're doing, and then put a little bit more in and talk about what we're doing. All right. Because if I just gave you the code and there was no explanation, it probably would make that code very hard to understand. All right. My first thing I want to ask you, and you can type this in. I'm just going to put in a line of code. All right, that's the first line that we're putting in. But I have a question for you. The error is going to go away in just a minute. Don't worry about the error. All right, val service, weather API. Okay, we're going to fix this in a minute. I asked you this before. I'm asking you again. What's the difference between val and var? Can somebody tell me? Val is a constant. So we are not planning on changing this value. The suggestion is if you're not going to be changing the value, always use val. Only use var if you plan on changing the value. All right? We're grabbing information from the internet. By no means do we want to change any of it. All right? The other thing that you're going to see, and it's weird because this is the way this language works. All right? I mean, I could show you, I'm just going to show you something now. Don't type this in. I just wanted to show you something. All right, if I come in here and do this, in fact, I'm going to comment this line out just because it's got an error in it. I'm going to uncomment it in just a second. So if I come in here and I do this, if I type in var age, don't do this. We're not using this. If I say var age equal 21, all right, I just made a variable called age, right? The system knows. Notice when I type in an A, and I type in a G, and I type in an E. The system actually does know that it's an integer. It does. I can also come in and I can do this. Remember we looked at that in class? So I can do that. All right? But the system knows that it's an integer. But if I try to do this, I get an error. Anybody want to guess why I'm getting an error right there? The simplest answer is null ain't no int. But when you are working with web addresses and etc., it's possible at any time this stuff can break. You might have given it a wrong address, the website might be down, etc. So we want to protect ourselves. So what we're going to end up doing, if you look on your screen here, is we're going to do a lot of this. We're going to put a question mark there. And again, I don't want this here anymore. All right, we're going to do stuff like that. What that means is if you put a question mark after it, it can hold a null. I'm just warning you about that right now. All right? Because you're going to see some of this stuff when we start putting in code, question marks are going to be put in there automatically for you. You're like, what the hell is this question mark? And it's just saying it is okay if somehow it holds null. Don't blow up the program. Don't make it stop and give me an exception. Why did they choose the question mark? I'm not sure. Putting the question mark in there turns it on. To turn it off, again, to me this is strange. It's 2 exclamation points. Why did they choose that? I don't know. But the question mark is also used that same way in iOS programming. All right? And that's probably where they got it from. I don't know. Or else iOS got it from them. I'm not sure. Okay. Now, right now it's giving me this error, and if I put my mouse here, it says it must be initialized or it must be abstract. So there's 2 things I can do here, 3 things. 1, I can put abstract before that. I don't want to do that. 2, I can actually initialize it. So I can say that, instead of this, I could say it equals something. Or 3, and this is what we're going to do, we're going to write what's called an init. All right? We could use an init in Kotlin to do our initialization. It's sort of like a mini constructor, for lack of better words. But instead of where we call a constructor, it's called on a class, the init is called on our variable. All right? So we've got a variable, it's a constant variable that's called service. It is of type weather API, so it's of this type. See this? It's of that type. But we have to initialize it to something, otherwise the system is confused. It doesn't know what it is when it starts up, what it is we want to do. All right. And this is in just a minute where we're going to put in a really, really long line of code. All right? Before we do that, we have to do 2 things. First thing we have to do, you don't have to do this right now, but I'm going to go back to this. And in here, someplace in here, I don't remember where it is, they talk about converters. What we need to be able to do is to take that JSON and convert it into something Kotlin understands. Does that make sense? Kotlin doesn't directly understand the JSON. So we're going to have to use a converter. And notice there's a bunch of them here that we can use. All right. The recommended one is the one that's there first. Okay? But that's not the line that you need. So I'd like you, if you would please, to go back to that Gradle file. All right, the one we opened up before, right there. Okay? I'd like you to hit enter. Notice I hit enter, not there it goes. Okay. And I'd like you to take the file, the line that's above it, we're going to change it in a second, but take that line that's right above it and copy it in. Okay? You're like, why are we doing that? We're going to change this in just a minute. All right? So after you've done that, we still want the compile, com.squareup.retrofit, etc., 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 retrofit to whatever it is. But now, instead of having it say retrofit : 2.3.0, now we want it to say converter.json, like that. That's going to allow us to do the conversion. But it's in a different part of retrofit, so we need to add that. All right, I'm going to let you do that, and when you get done, if you've done it, again, click the Sync Now link that's right here. Yes, you do. Because that's the version of, oh, crud. And I made a mistake. It's not JSON, it's JSON. Boy, Jeff. There. Hopefully when it comes back, it'll tell me to sync again. I'm hoping it does. And if it doesn't, I'm going to force it to it. Okay, notice it did not work properly. Good. I'm going to try it again. Because there is no converter-JSON or .json. It's converter. Oh, jeez Louise. That's what it is. All right. Yeah, it's one of those days I wish I wouldn't have gotten out of bed, to be honest with you. All right, so it should say compile. Then inside of single quotes, it should say com.squareup.retrofit2 : converter -json : 2.3.0, and then enter single quote. I'm going to tell it to try again. Ideally, at least, this one will work. The good news is I got to show you what happens when you put in stuff that the system doesn't understand. Okay, and I'm going to try, this might be really terrible, but it just popped in my head, so I'm going to say it anyway. All right. Am I right in assuming that everyone in this room at some time or another in your life, you've been to a library? Is that a fair assumption? Okay. And I have no idea. I've been in the Wentzville library because I had to vote there. Okay, but other than that, it was closed, so I didn't even get to walk through there but other than the polling part. But my guess is, if I went into the Wentzville library, and let's say that I went and looked online and I wanted a certain book. Let's just say it was a book on Android. And they didn't have it. Okay? But a thing came up that said that they are partners with the St. Charles Public Library. And they have it. So if you ask, we'll bring it in for you. Does that make sense? Maybe you've done that before. That's kind of what we're doing here. But what we're doing is we're telling the system, rather than us having to write a lot of code, a lot of that code already exists. It's in a library that's called Retrofit 2. And first we wanted to add that book, and now we want to add that book. So once we do that, it brings it into our program, so we're able to add and use the stuff that's in there. Does that make sense? Like I said, that's not the greatest of analogies. It just popped into my head. All right? But that's kind of what we're doing. Because, if you want to put in a button, you know you have to import android.widget.button. You know that. But we want to be able to add stuff that is not inherent. It's not provided by default to Android. That's when you can come in and use something like Gradle. Because you can say then, hey, my program, when you compile it, bring in this stuff. That's what it's doing. So we're telling it to go out to squareup.com. We're telling it to find the Retrofit 2 library, and we're telling it we want to use the Retrofit 2.3.0 class. Okay? Then later we're telling it to do the same thing, but we want to use the converter-json class. Okay? All right. Now, I'm going to jump back again, not there, into my weather help that we've been working with right here, and I'm in my weather retriever class. The reason I had you do that is now we have to type, and it's going to be big. All right? I'm making this give you as much room here as I can. Hopefully it'll all fit in here. If it doesn't, then I'll have to move it over. Now, in order to get this to work, we're going to have to take this and assign this to a variable. Okay? So I'm going to make a val here that I'm just going to call retrofit. There is nothing special about the name, except that it's about to go out and call the Retrofit Builder. Let's do, give me a break. Boy, oh boy, this is 2 dot. Okay, we'll take that. All right. No, I don't want that. All right. Like I said, we're going to have quite a bit of typing to do here. And now, of course, it's like, there we go. Retrofit 2.retrofit.builder dot base URL, and guess what that base URL is going to be? Remember when we just looked at this thing in here just a minute ago? Right there. The base URL is everything that comes before the word bins. So I'm going to go and put mine in again, https://api.myjson.com/ like that. All right, and that is going to end up being my base URL. If you say you're doing it way too fast, Jeff, then just watch me do it. All right, I'm not in any hurry. And so this is going to be my base URL, and I'm going to put in parentheses and in double quotes what I just told you. All right, so that's my base URL. We're not done yet. And it's giving me red here. It says unresolved reference. That actually is correct. Hopefully it's going to reconcile itself in just a minute. It is lowercase b, A-S-E. It is uppercase URL. That is right. All right. Now, there's more that we have to add. So I'll give you a second to try to catch up to that. And I'm sorry, but I'm getting to the point that if I'll give you 30 seconds or a minute, but if you can't type it in that fast, you got to learn to type faster. Is it a lowercase? Okay, then I typed mine in correctly. All right. It's an uppercase U and it's a lowercase RL. We're about half done with this command. Okay. So we're telling it to go out to the Retrofit 2 library, find the Retrofit class, find the Builder class, and we're about to build something. And we're telling it what our base URL is, and that's what this is. All right? So after the base URL, now we have to tell it that it's going to have to convert this. And it's going to have to convert this using that JSON. So I'm going to put here dot add, and notice I can do a call adapter or I can do a converter factory. I want the converter factory. All right, we're still not done. So it's add converter factory, and it says, what do you want to use? All right, well, now when we type in JSON, notice it recognizes it. It did not recognize that before. All right, had we not put in that other thing that other dependency into Gradle, it would not recognize this. All right, I can tell you that for certain. All right, so it's JSON converter factory. Like I said, this is a really long line of code. Dot create, paren. Now we're almost done. Dot build. That's the whole line right there. Now, what the claim is that I can hit enter right here, and it's smart enough that I can do it like this. You may or may not remember that, but we did what's called chaining in jQuery. It's kind of what we're doing right here. And the claim is that even putting it over 2 lines like that, it'll work. I'm putting it over 2 lines like that so you can type it in. And you've got to make sure, if you look here, notice this parenthesis right here. Everybody see that one in blue? That's mapping up with this one. So you've got to have the right number of parens. It's so easy to screw this stuff up because it's very intricate in its own way. All right. And if you notice, we still have an error, right? Everybody see that? At least mine still has an error. And why is that? Because we still have not initialized service. We still have not initialized service. Now we can. Okay? So I'm going to say here service equals. All right? And I've got to tell it what it equals. All right? And that will be boy, sometimes it wants retrofit, sometimes it wants retrofit 2. When I did this earlier, this worked just fine. Retrofit dot create, and now that does look like it's correct. All right, dot create. And lo and behold, as far as I can tell at least, all right, there are no errors now. Might have some warnings, and that's probably going to be for spelling things, all right, that it doesn't understand weather retriever, for example. But that's okay. All right, we're going to put in just a few more lines, and then we're just going to call this a period. You will be able to run it when you get done, all right, but it's not going to be totally done yet. Now, what is all this stuff doing? We are telling it right here to provide us with the ability of taking JSON and converting it over into a format that Kotlin can understand. That's what we're telling it to do. All right? And the system is smart enough that it's going to be able to do all that stuff. All right? Now, the problem is, when we get a forecast, right now, when we get a forecast, now it has enough that it can get the forecast, but it doesn't have enough to do anything with the forecast that it gets. So we're going to come right into where we are, and under that init, so we're still in this class called weather retriever, we're going to make a function that's called get forecast. All right, oh, forecast. Boy. And inside of this thing called get forecast, I'm going to explain all this stuff if you just hold on for just a second. We want to do a callback, but please look on the screen. Again, not at me, but look at the screen. Make sure for the callback, choose the one here that says retrofit 2. So double click on that. All right, you want to make sure it's that one that you're choosing. All right, so it's going to be callback callback, it's giving me an error because it's like you got to provide it some information. All right, guess what? You already know what that is because you did it before. List of forecast objects. All right. And again, don't worry about errors. They'll be fixed up in just a minute. All right, well, faster than I thought. All right. So right now the function isn't doing a doggone thing. So we're going to make it do something. Val call equals service dot get forecast call dot enqueue callback. The good news is we're done with our weather retriever. All right, we're done with it. We have to do a little bit more stuff, but we're done with it. Hopefully, if you look on the screen and if you look on the side of your machine right here, you don't have anything red. If you have anything red, then there's something erroneous in your program. If you've got a lot of, like I've got here, it's just telling you that either I've got stuff in there I don't need or I've got typos or whatever. All right, and even some of this stuff with the warnings, it'll clear out when we finish everything else off. But what I want you to understand is this, and it may not make a lot of sense. This is one reason that if we're going to go into this kind of complexity in here, we almost have to cover object-oriented programming in JavaScript. Because a lot of the stuff that we did creating the JSON, etc., it's all object-oriented JavaScript. All right? And believe me, this is the easy one out of the ones that I found. All right, you might say, well, easy? And I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying this is the easiest out of the three I could have given you. It's got the least code, and it's one I can at least try to explain as we're going through it. All right? Now, yesterday or the day before, I don't remember when it was, but yesterday or the day before, we started talking about the difference between doing something asynchronously and doing something synchronously, okay? And you may remember that we said that when you do something asynchronously, you can, for lack of better words, kind of do it in the background, all right? And the system can go about and go on its merry way and do different things, all right? If you do stuff synchronously, it's, you know, the example I gave you the other day, it's like if I say, Amin, go do this, whatever this is, please go do this. And he does it. I stop class until he comes back and says it's done. So when something is synchronous like that, you've got to do this, then you can do the next thing, then you can do the next thing, etc. Does that make sense? What we're telling it right here, if you look on the screen, we're telling it to do this in the background. That's what the enqueue is doing. We're telling it to do that in the background. Because otherwise we would have to wait until it was done doing whatever it is it's going to be doing. All right? We don't want to do that. All right. In my steps here, I'm going to go a little bit off. In other words, I'm going to do, right now we are at step 15, and I'm going to jump to step 16. Okay? You'll see why in a minute. The order in which we do these won't matter, but I want to show you this. I want you to go back to here, please. So you're back at your project window right there. I want that to be showing. It doesn't have to be real wide. It doesn't have to be big like this. It can be small, but I want you to be here where you can see this. All right? And I want you to click the arrow by manifests, and I want you to open up your Android.manifest.xml file, this one. You'll know because up here it'll say Android Manifest.xml. All right? If all we ever wanted to do was to run this program on an emulator, what I'm going to show you right now, you wouldn't have to do. Did everybody hear that? But do we really want to run everything we do on the emulator? I mean, if you plan on putting this in the App Store, then you're supposing anybody who runs this has an emulator. That's probably not going to be the case. Probably 99.9% of people Won't. They want to run it on their phone. But one of the things we're asking this program to do is to go out and go to the internet. That should make sense to you by now from what we've looked at. Well, the way that this works is if you want to go out and use the internet, your program has to ask permission. So you've got a line here that says package equal, and you've got another one that says application, and you've got a blank line between them. Everybody see where I'm talking about? I'm going to go into that blank line that's right there. I'm going to go into that blank line, and I'm going to put in here uses dash, try it again. Let me try the whole thing all over again. Uses dash permission. Okay, so notice if I put in permission, all right, then I have to say Android name equals, and notice what it gives me. I didn't do that. All I put in was uses permission, and I hit the space bar, and it put in the rest of this for me. You with me? All right, and I'm going to look in here, and when I start to work my way through, what I want is, notice if I go long enough, there's one that says Android permission internet. That's it. You can put you can put a blank line before it. You can put a blank line after it. It really doesn't matter. But this is saying I want to be able to use the internet, so I am asking for permission to use the internet. There's probably a good story as to why you have to do this. I didn't take the time to look it up. All right? Okay. We have to put in about 10 more lines of code. Let's take another break first. Many of you have your face on like, God, I need a break. All right? So go take a break. It's 2:57. Let's come back at 3:10. We should be able to add that code. It's really and truly not that hard. We should be able to add that in about 10 minutes or so. All right? Then you should be able to run it, and down on the bottom in your logcat window, you should be able to see those things in there. If you did that, it worked. That's what I wanted to get to today. And tomorrow we have to change that because we don't want to use that. We want it to go out and use the internet. So that's what we'll do tomorrow. Can we do that in a period? We'll see. If we can't, then we'll finish it up on Friday. All right? 3:10, please. 5, 6, 7, 8. Who's there? All right, before we start up, I just got this email from our site director, Jeremy Sutton. He asked me if I would be willing to go to Fort Zumwalt Hope High School next Tuesday and talk at their career day. All right, and there's 4 presentations. The first one's at 10:50, the last one's at 1 o'clock, and each one's a half an hour. All right. Do I want to do it? Probably guess, but I will. That's fine. So what I will do is I will talk to Mike next door. We will open up the area in here as we've done before. We will do that next Tuesday. I'll try to be back then since it ends at 1:25. Try to be back here by 2 o'clock, but we'll plan on next Tuesday being lab for the entire day. Everybody hear that? All right. And I'm just going to, get back to them. I will tomorrow morning, but I want to tell the morning class that I'm going to have to leave early. I'll have to leave at 10 so I can get there by 10:50. I don't even know what that is. Fort Hope High School? I don't even know where that is, but I'll look it up. I don't care. All right. Is it O'Fallon? Yeah. Okay. I you know what? I've looked at so many houses. I probably have driven right by it. So like I said, I'm not worried about it. All I need is an address, and then I'll just put it in the GPS, so that's fine. You were all marked here today. You were all marked present, and even those of us like Mr. Brady who were late, I didn't mark late. All right. Now I will tell this for Colin, just so he knows what they are implementing into the system next year. Evidently, it's a change. Again, it's not their software, but they put in the thing that from now on, when you're marked tardy, 2 tardies, it's going to literally change on the slip to an absence. And it's going to do that from now on. Now, I've already asked, personally, pardon my French, I think me taking attendance is a joke and a pain in the ass. I think what they ought to do is they literally ought to have thumbprint scanners for all of you, and when you come in here, you put your thumbprint in. If you're late, it ain't my problem. I'm serious. But they've done that, and they said it's cost prohibitive, is what I've heard. Then find the money someplace else. Pull it out of your butt. I don't really care. But there's no reason we should have to be wasting time and having somebody come up and say, one of my students yesterday, or Monday, he said, I never changed my clocks. I get it. It was daylight savings time. He came in an hour late, but then I had to remember to go back and change it. I just marked him as tardy. Technically, I could have marked him as absent. Charles does that. If you're not here by a half an hour, you're absent. Even if you walk in at 8:31, they'll let you stay in class, but you're absent. Everybody's different here. All right? In fact, many of the people here are very different. All right. See, I said that before I started taping, so that was good. All right. No, I didn't, because I never turned the tape off. All right.